just got a table. It's talking about all the different methods of solving quadratic equations. You've got factoring, grouping, using square root, which kind of goes along with completing the square and the quadratic formula. I'm not going to read through all these. You can choose when to use them, and you can also read, I hope, now that you are probably in high school, or at least in 8th grade. So read through these. It's a hint on when to use what method. But remember, you can always use the quadratic formula. That will always work. So now we're going to talk about the discriminant. This is not being discriminatory or anything like that. We're not discriminating. This is called the discriminant. The discriminant is just the expression under the radical sign in the quadratic formula. What that discriminant does is it will tell you how many answers you have. Remember, we looked at graphs earlier in this chapter and we said, well, if there's no x-intercepts, there's no solution. If there's one x-intercept, there's one solution. If there's two x-intercepts, there's two solutions. Well, our discriminant can also do that if you don't have a graph. So all you do, you look at b squared minus 4ac. If it's negative, no solution. If b squared minus 4ac is 0, there's one solution. And if b squared minus 4ac is positive, there are two solutions. If you can think about this a little bit, the reason this happens is because if we had to take the square root of a negative number, that would be no solution. If I took the square root of 0 and I had plus or minus the square root of 0, plus or minus 0 is the same thing. Adding 0 is the same thing as subtracting 0, and it's when we have plus or minus a number other than 0 that we get our two different answers. That's why this happens, and you can just use the discriminant to look to see how many solutions there are to a problem, and it's just b squared minus 4ac. Notice you don't have to take the square root because all we're looking is if it's negative, 0, or positive. So let's find the value of the discriminant of this equation and then to determine the number of solutions. So first thing I got to do is put it in standard form. So I'm going to add 3 to each side. I get 4x squared plus 5x plus 3 equals 0. And now I'm going to find the discriminant. The discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. And here I've got b is 5. A is 4, and C is 3. So I'm going to plug in those values. I've got 5 squared minus 4 times A times C. 5 squared is 25, minus 4 times 4 is 16, times 3 is 48, and I get 25 minus 48, which would be negative 23. My discriminant is negative. Go back, look at my table. Negative, 0 x-intercepts, 0 solutions. So we know how many real solutions are there? There are no solutions. Just another way for you to check to see if you can do anything. This would be helpful if you were trying to factor something and you wanted to see, well, maybe this is prime. If you just looked at the discriminant and saw it was negative, then you would see, oh, it's negative. That means there's no solutions, which means I can't factor it, which means it must be prime. Okay, just a little trick you can use to check things. All right, it doesn't really help you in finding the answer, though. It's just to see how many answers there actually are. That's all there is for this lesson. Hopefully the quadratic formula doesn't scare you too much, and you're getting to the point where you've done enough of these that you can pick how you want to solve them. It's your choice. Let me know if you have any questions on this section.